JD Varish, and hello again and welcome to this video. This is a second in what I hope will be a series of videos about collecting, mostly about stamp collecting, but as the weeks go on, other subjects will be discussed. Last week I talked about collecting itself and what makes people like me do what we do. I talked about having a collecting gene in our DNA. I talked about nostalgia, and I talked about the need that we seem to have to build some kind of archive. This video will be about my worldwide stamp collection and how it evolved from about 1961 to the place where it is today. Now, back around 1961, stamp collecting was regarded as a rite of passage for most boys, and I have to say it was mostly boys, and most boys would have done it for a year or so, and some, like myself, stayed with it. Now, back then, Woolworths, the largest department store in Belfast, had part of a counter dedicated to stamps. You could buy albums, you could buy tweezers, stamp hinges, and of course stamps themselves. These stamps were sold in packets, say 25 Belgium, say 20 Spain, 10 Iran, whatever, and they cost usually sixpence or ninepence. And a lot of these stamps were what we now call CTO, cancelled to order. These stamps were usually produced in what we used to call the Soviet bloc by the Soviet Union itself, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, etc. And really, they were stamps that had never passed through the mail and never would pass through the mail. They were cancelled en bloc, on machines, broken up, and sold to stamp dealers who then sold them to people like me through Woolworths. And they are, of course, completely worthless because a stamp is a receipt for a service, and as soon as it's cancelled, the service can't be used. Now, these stamps were usually very colourful and on popular themes such as space travel, such as football, such as the Olympic Games, winter sports, whatever. In other words, they were specifically designed for collectors, and they were generally avoided by serious adult collectors and enthusiastically bought up by young people like myself. Now, I think the story of juvenile stamp collecting is often the story of a growing realization that you're being exploited in some way or other, that you're not going to be like Franklin D. Roosevelt and build a great stamp collection that is worth something. Now, I specifically mention Franklin D. Roosevelt because he was held up as the most famous person who ever collected stamps. And he was mentioned in the inside cover of the very first paper stamp album of 64 pages that I bought, or my father bought for me, in or around 1961. You see, the album was a kind of A to Z, Afghanistan to Zanzibar or whatever, and it had space on each page for about 42 stamps. And I used to agonise, what did Franklin D. Roosevelt do when he got a 43rd stamp from Czechoslovakia? Because I did have that dilemma. Now, I didn't realise then, maybe just until the mid-1960s, that you did not have to buy one of these pre-prepared albums, pre-printed albums. You could actually buy a loose leaf album, pages that fitted into a springback album, and you effectively customized yourself. Good thing. And I had 2 of these in the late 1960s. Now, in 1970, I started specialising in Ireland. Now, you can't do 2 things. You can't specialise in a country and specialise in the whole world. And my interest in the whole world really declined because I really wanted no more than 1 or 2 stamps from each country in the world. And as countries became independent through decolonisation in the 1960s and 1970s, or through the breakup of the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, it never felt important to me to have a great worldwide collection. But in 2001, I stopped collecting stamps altogether. Now, the main reason was that Ireland was issuing too many stamps. I couldn't keep up with the new issues, and it was becoming obsessive. It was not fun anymore. And I did not take up stamp collecting again until 2012. Now, one of the reasons that I was able to collect again was a decision that I would collect the rest of the world. And I would do so in a very juvenile, fun way. Because on one side, I had the seriousness of being a collector of Ireland. And on the other side, I had the fun of just seeing nice, colourful stamps from around the world. And I think that's important, that you need a sense of fun. And interest in one country does not really do that. Thanks for watching.